Welcome to the Speak with People podcast, where we believe that healthy communication is the key to unlocking your leadership potential. We are the go-to resource for leaders looking to greatly improve their communication skills, whether it's one-on-one interactions, team settings, public speaking, or digital communication. By improving these skills, leaders can create stronger connections and drive positive change within their organizations. Each and every episode, we sit down with experts from various fields from around the world, just like you're grabbing a coffee with them, to dive into real, practical conversations. Our goal is to help you transform your communication skills so you can lead more effectively, build stronger relationships, and make a lasting impact. So go grab your favorite drink, settle in, and let's learn together. Well, how do you lead with presence when your schedule never stops demanding more? And if you're like many leaders, you're juggling endless meetings, decisions, responsibilities, yet feeling reactive and drained. Maybe you're in the boat like I am, where there's just a nonstop ability or need to send prospecting emails or to connect with new leaders, and you're always trying to play the catch up. Well, today on the Speak with People podcast, we are going to explore how small and intentional pauses can transform the way you lead and live. Well, I'm Jason Raitz. I'm host of the Speak with People podcast. And I am so excited to welcome Shannon Seastead. She's a former C-suite executive, certified executive coach, speaker, and author of Micro Moment Reset. She knows firsthand what it's like to lead under pressure. She's developed practical methods for breaking reactive patterns and leading with clarity, calm, and control. And so whether you're burned out, you're stuck in survival mode, you're simply ready to show up differently, I can't wait. This episode is for you. Shannon, thank you so much for being on the podcast. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm very happy to be here. Excited to share what we have to say today.
I love it. I love it. I've been looking through your website and following you on LinkedIn, and I've been excited for this conversation. Can't wait for our listeners to find out more about you and your book. Before we jump into that, though, maybe give us the 20,000, 10,000, whatever 1,000-foot overview of your story, who you are, what you do, what's got you to this place.
Sure. So, for me, I think I've just had the most interesting 5 years. I was the senior vice president at a company that I was with for 23 years.
Wow.
I literally joined them. I think I was employee number 10, and we are a $600 million company when I got laid off. As that happens when you become, part of private equity and you're bought out. I found out that I was getting laid off on the way to my mom's funeral.
Mm.
So really interesting opportunity to just see the height of really challenging out of touch leadership. After that, I took another job as a CMO. And while I was there, I really just started to notice that over and over again, leaders were just not really able to. Everyone was struggling. Everyone was really challenged with what was coming their way. And I realized that from my perspective, my passion had changed. And while I still loved marketing, I was really much more interested in leadership and helping leaders navigate, quite frankly, this new world that we're in. The past 5 years have seen so much change, so many challenges. Leadership just hasn't really caught up, and we can't, because we're just moving at such a pace and speed that's just unprecedented. So I got my coaching certificate. I got certified in breath work, and I wrote the book Micro Moment Reset, which is really just about reclaiming yourself and your personal authority around all the noise that surrounds us today. So many of us would just, and leaders included, have just lost ourselves, lost our way in just the busyness and the loudness of the world. And I just really wanted to find a way to help people reconnect, and I wanted to be a part of the solution. So here I am.
Wow, okay. Okay, so I've got to at least ask, what a story. Did I mean, as a vice president, obviously you and being with the company for 23 years,
Yeah.
did they know the personal stuff you were going through? Did they not read the
No, it was
room?
so interesting. like I said, we'd been taken over by private equity. We'd had private equity kind of run with us for years. So it was a really great, comfortable relationship. We loved it. Actually, I had nothing negative about it. And our private equity team kind of flip flopped. So they internally changed and then hired new people really quickly to come in and kind of take out our leadership team. So the person that had come in just really didn't take the time to work with her leaders. And the interesting thing is, I had a team about 45, and within 3 months, 3 quarters of that team had left. That's how
Wow.
badly they read the room. I've been there for a long time. I loved the company. I understand private equity and stuff, but it was just she obviously lost her job.
Yeah.
She just didn't take the time to stop and really understand who she was dealing with and understand the team that was surrounding her. So it was
Wow.
the whole thing was quite frankly devastating for me,
Yeah.
my team, as a leader. Right, one of the things that you really love, at least the thing that I loved most about being a leader, was my team,
Hmm.
nurturing them, developing them. So when I was abruptly dismissed, my whole team just felt like the rug had been pulled out from under them because it was in such a
Oh,
disappointing manner. Yeah.
that's why it's always surprising to me when leaders will equate their team culture to a family. And,
Yeah.
I get that. I get it. I watched The
Mhm.
Office. I understand Michael Scott's heart, as he called it, his family. But when these moments happen,
Yeah.
it's like, ooh, okay, well, that doesn't, it's a whole different story if there's a pattern of, poor performance evaluations and,
Yeah.
a downward, cycle of not responding to, but this, these kind of situations,
Yeah.
especially when you're
No.
going through
Highly
something so
functioning
powerful.
team. Again, and we've all heard it, right? Layoffs
Sure.
today, where we also
Yep.
had this layoff culture going on. So that's
Hmm.
part of this huge shift that we've seen in the
Yeah.
past 5 years is, layoffs are really no longer about, getting rid of the low-hanging fruit and how do we,
Yeah.
there it's really about numbers.
Yeah.
So
So could you,
yeah.
I hadn't planned on asking this, but I'm hearing this more and more from listeners. 23 years,
Yeah.
probably some of your identity was wrapped up into, okay, I've been here 23 years. You
Yeah.
probably started somewhere not at the VP level and you were
I was a
able to,
baby.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I
You,
came in as a marketing manager. I came in as a marketing
wow.
manager and grew to senior
Wow.
vice president. Mhm.
So what did that do
Yeah.
to your identity afterwards? What did it take you a while to bounce back? Was it, I mean, obviously you were going through also some enormous grief. So, did it pile on because of that grief? Maybe you didn't really think about it. I'm just so curious about,
Yeah,
how
I
it
love this
hit you.
question, and I've never been asked it in a public setting, which is really, really
Mm.
interesting. Um, it was compounded grief. Like, I
Oof.
23 years, right? Like, I joined the company in my late 20s. I had my kids there, my friends were there, my identity was there. Um, and then, like I said, it was the middle of COVID, right? So we were all kind of in some sort of grieving process in COVID. I just lost my mom. I was in the middle of COVID, and then this stability and this, to your point, my identity was just kind of ripped out from under me, and it really, I think, was a big part of this transition that I've had to say, you know what, I really, I went and I took another CMO job, and I think it was that transition that really was the driving force behind me saying, we can do better. We have to
Mm.
do better as leaders. You're not in business for as long as I've been and not understand hard business decisions. And, we're all in business to make money. That's how it works. But there's got to be a way to bring humanity back. And I
Mm.
think somewhere during that line of COVID, we've lost so much of that. And
Wow.
that's really where my mission and passion is how do we can do good business and be good people.
Wow. Wow. Boy, I love that. That
Yeah.
is so profound. So walk us through, because so many leaders, constantly feel, especially now. I don't know if I who it was. Was it Angela Duckworth or Adam Grant? One of those two titans of research and
Yeah.
data.
Huge.
But the idea of, these devices, if they're near us, we always have this bit of anxiety because we're waiting for it to go off, we're waiting for it to ding, whatever it is. And so we always feel like work is, 10 o'clock at night. Oh, got a work email. Oh, gotta.
Yeah,
So
right.
how do you find those, micro moment resets? How do you find those moments where
Right.
you're going, I got to turn all that off so I can kind of reset my mind?
Right. It's so interesting. So like as people, right, we make like 35,000 decisions a day, and managers make like 50,000 decisions a day. I think we're interrupted like 3 to 10 times, 3 to, out of every 23 minutes.
Mm,
I think we get like 120 emails a day, right? So there's all of this noise around us constantly, and that's just kind of work. Do you know what I mean? Like work stuff. Um, and that's what happens. We get lost in it. So I think like I looked at it kind of this way, that you when you feel any kind of emotion, right? So any kind of, you get a ping, and how do you feel? You're like a little stressed, right? You look at your inbox and you're like, oh my gosh, there's 50 emails. So whenever you feel just any sort of emotion, that's the opportunity to just stop.
mm,
Even if it's, and this is a totally different conversation for a totally different day, even if it's just joy. But do you know what I
mm,
mean? When you feel like any sort of heightened sense, it gives you an opportunity. There's something in your response mechanisms, right? That gives you the opportunity to say, oh, I've got a heightened emotion in me right now. I'm going to stop, and I'm just going to pause. And it's so interesting because we don't do that. We're in such a reactionary society. And that's the problem with leaders. And that's why, I fall so much into this micro moment reset, is because my goal is to get people out of reacting into responding.
wow.
From a leadership perspective and from a personal perspective, we give away so much of our lives and so much of how we interact with the world by just reacting and not actually intuitively responding how we would like to respond. So whenever you just feel that any sort of sense of heightened emotion in you, just stop, just pause. And there's, I mean, it's not, nothing in this book and nothing that I'm teaching and going back is new. It's all out there, you can find it anywhere, but we forget these things, and
Hmm.
we forget how powerful it is day to day to just stop. There's power, right, in the pause. We've all heard that, but there's really true power in that pause. So whenever you just get excited, happy, angry, you're driving in the car and somebody, slams their brake in front of you, before you find yourself reacting, just stop.
Mm.
And then I like to tell people to breathe in and out. Take a moment to ground yourself. There's research that says, your system calms down when you breathe. And you can do it so quickly and without people even noticing. And then that gives you the power to choose how you want
Wow.
to react. Not
Wow.
respond, or not react, respond. How you
Yeah.
want to choose to move forward. Do you want to be pissy and hit the guy? Okay. But if you really want to be caught, then you made that choice.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
You made
But
that choice for how you want to respond.
that's right. I see. I love this because you're right. We know these things, but we get so busy, and maybe the age and experience starts to pile up, and we leave the basics. We leave
Yeah.
those habits that help us regulate our emotional intelligence, or have those situations. And so, to think through them, is so incredibly powerful. What have you seen are some of the biggest costs to leaders if they don't take these
Oh.
micro moment resets?
Yeah, I really, really love that question, because I think that there's so much, so much cost to leaders. First of all, it's when you're with your people and you're not paying attention to them and you're just reacting and shooting off answers all day long and you're not listening, you're really losing out on that overall connection, right, with your people. Think about that. We've all had leaders who just don't pay any attention to us. And what happens is they're so stuck in their head and they're so stuck on their to-do list and they're so stuck on what they've got to accomplish or their 120 emails that are sitting in their inbox, that we lose that connection. And when you lose that connection, you lose understanding what's really happening in the work situation, in the leadership setting, and you lose that relationship. And today, with all the technology, all the noise coming at us, that relationship and is what's so important.
Mm.
um you lose your communication, right? You talk about communication every day, how critical it is to the success of a business. If you're not really thinking about what you're saying and how you're responding and how you're sharing feedback or how you're sharing instructions, think about all the time that's wasted by just shooting something off and reacting to a question or reacting to something without saying, let me stop and pause for a minute and say, what is the best way to answer this question? Or what's the best way to deal with Joni? Knowing what Joni is going through today, let me take an extra second to really determine, can I be answering her in a better way?
Wow.
Communication, relationships, time, so much is wasted by just not taking the appropriate steps to respond with intention.
Wow. Wow. Just incredible. As you look back in your career in corporate, uh, are there seasons or moments where you wish now, knowing what oh, I wish I could go and apply that. Like, are there any
Yeah.
seasons or, time periods that stick out
Yeah.
to you?
So many seasons. And before you and I went live, we were talking about our kids.
Yeah.
But when I was a busy mom, right, where I had kids in school and I was taking them to soccer and Boy Scouts, and I was working full time and had a team at work. And those were the times where I was probably much more reactive than responsive. My list was just so overwhelmed of things that I had to do every day. And I really hadn't learned about the value of stopping.
Mm.
I absolutely remember conversations with coworkers that I regret, just, firing something off. And, instead of actively participating in the conversation or actively saying, let's sit down and talk about this. Instead, it was just, let me shoot this off. And I think leaders get caught up in that, so often. Um, but that was probably the biggest challenge for me. I mean, you can't take away the fact that working parents have so much more on their plate than everybody else.
Oh,
um, and part of responding is listening. And when you give yourself that pause, you give yourself permission to stop and listen to what people are saying. And I think
yeah.
that is just a skill set that leaders today need to just pick back up. Technology has just taken over so much that that interpersonal communication is lacking.
Well, you reference it, but we were talking off air. Just we have kids in the same category, and how they're if they text us, they're looking for a response immediately, within nanoseconds, and it's interesting
It's
because
true.
I talk with managers. We have this interesting time in life, right? Four generations working together, sometimes five,
Yeah.
and each generation is communicates a different way. And
Yep.
so it's
So
really
true.
interesting as they all come together. And so what especially leaders or managers listening who help kind of direct the culture of the team, how important is it for them to kind of teach through some of these same moments to kind of get everybody on the same page of looking at that pause and those micro moment resets?
Yeah. Oh, I love that question. And I have to admit that I'm Gen X. It's and I've always been really fortunate to love to work with the millennials and the Gen Zs, and I hear different feedback from different generations. But I feel like each generation, from my experience, is really excited to show up at work.
Mm.
And if we can provide them with the culture where everybody works together, I feel like there's a really great opportunity. We're all bringing different things to the table, and like I say, in my experience, I've seen a lot of enthusiasm. And to your point, a lot of it is figuring out how do we find the communication lines that work for everybody, right?
Mm,
And I think that that settles into leadership, again, setting the tone and leaving space for everybody's voice, whatever that voice looks like. Different generations like different channels, right? Some people like Slack, some people like email, some people like meetings. um, and really working with the team you have. I feel really strongly about teams being, their own microorganism, right? And working with the team you've got and figuring out what works for that team, and being able to change and say, hey guys, let's make room and space for everybody. What's the communication preference for this team that we've got in place today? And let's talk about it versus this is the way we've always done it. I feel like we have to do more and more of that, which is a really interesting point that you bring up, that there's just so many generations working together, and figure out what works for the team and step outside of, what worked for the team 2 years ago might not work for the team today. So,
right.
so I
Right.
love that, but it's a great opportunity to stop and say,
Right.
hey, what works for us, and let's shift and change and make a decision to figure out, how this team is going to operate versus how the team operated, 6 months ago.
Right. I love that.
Yeah,
Uh,
interesting.
Sometimes I think leaders were waiting for our leader or our boss or
Yeah.
our team lead or somebody else to remind us to do some of these things that we need to be leading in ourselves. Why is it so hard sometimes to lead ourselves first? Because if we're not, and we're waiting for somebody else to go, hey, by the way, you're going through a lot right now. Take some time. Why is it so hard
Yeah.
sometimes to forget about that self
It's
leadership?
so interesting. One of the keynotes that I do is called Take the Lead, and it's
Mm.
very much about us being our own leaders. And I feel like in our world today, with the technology, everybody's capable, right? It's the 20-year-old coming out of college is just as capable as me with all my leadership. So much information's at our fingertips. We all have the ability to step up and lead ourselves and lead whatever it is that we are working and responsible for.
Yep.
Organizations are getting flatter. We're these layoffs. We're weeding out middle management. So it's really, really important, I feel, for everybody to step up and lead themselves and take that accountability for how they are showing up in the workplace. Quite frankly, and again, for a different conversation, I think it's important to figure out how you're showing up in the world.
Mhm.
But how you're leading yourself, is it representative of you? And that's part of, I think, what drove me to write the Micro Moment Reset, was that so many people really didn't feel that I was talking to, that they were really living their authentic life, that they were
Wow.
just rushing and running and choosing, just getting through the day and on autopilot, and had all of these things that they wanted to say and do and be, and kind of felt like they lost that authenticity with so much going on, all and that falls back into leading yourself, stepping up and saying, as a person with accountability in this organization, I have a responsibility to lead myself no matter where I fall on, in the chain of commands.
Wow.
And taking accountability for that, and having leaders respect that, and having leaders wanting other people to step up and take responsibility for themselves. Again, it's that ecosystem where leaders really drive that. And again, with the way the world is changing and with the way technology is changing, we all can't keep up. We all need each other to help, no matter
Yeah.
where you stand, and we all need to lead our days.
Wow. Wow. That's so good. So, corporate America, you're kind of moving up the org chart. You're a working mom, juggling all of that kind of stuff. Did you ever have any any point, in the midst of it all when something maybe at work did go terribly wrong where, you just had one of those kind of moments where you're going, okay, how can I continue to deal with this? And then, I mean, there's so many needs of a family. And how did you kind of move through that? How did you kind of put the pieces together and continue marching through it? Because
Yeah.
it's hard enough for some to just go to work, but then on the other end to cart kids around and figure out, it's just, you had two full-time
Yeah.
jobs.
I have to admit, and this kind of is probably a really great question, and so interesting for me to answer this, because I know I told you that once I was laid off and I started working as a CMO in a different place, and that my interest really changed to leadership and really shaping an organization. I think I had a really good opportunity to do that at my last job because I was there for so long,
Hmm.
but I also had really good leadership. um, I would be in a big team meeting with all of the other leaders in the company, and they would look at their watch and say, "Oh, hey Shannon, it's 3 o'clock. You need to go. You got to pick up your kids. They have soccer game."
Wow.
So I was very, very
Wow.
fortunate, and I was really good at my job. I ran a big team. We did some really great stuff, but I was still able to get home and get on the soccer field,
It's
or
amazing.
take my son to boxing, or all the things that these kids did. I had good leadership that allowed me to do that, and I
Wow.
really saw and understood the value of that, of letting people live their lives while also leading. And they knew how much I loved the company and loved my team and loved our mission. And they never questioned it. And they also never questioned my commitment to being a mom. And I feel, again, we just need to bring this humanity back to leadership. We can do better.
Wow.
We can.
That's powerful. Wow. That is
Yeah.
powerful. Well, so you've kind of transitioned again to where you started your own organization. You've written this book. You're speaking. You're working with, I know there's lots of entrepreneurs, speakers, listening. What has been the biggest surprises for you? What has been maybe a tough moment or two that you didn't see coming, in this new journey?
Yeah. Wow. So many things. The biggest surprise for me is that I'm seeing a universal pain across people and organizations. It's
Wow.
consistent.
Wow.
People are overloaded. People are stressed out. Burnout's real. Um, People are trying to navigate this. There truly has been a huge shift in the past 5 years. I'm obsessed with the research about it, just about how people are changing, how technology's changed us. It's real. And as a leadership collective, we have not caught up to that.
Mm,
And it's just pervasive. Um, so from that perspective, there's so much opportunity, to help people really understand why they're exhausted, why they're burnt out, why our systems are broken. So there's an opportunity to fix those systems, and it's going to take the right leaders and the right companies to do that. And I'm so excited to be a part of that process. Um, that is absolutely the most exciting thing I've seen. The hardest thing, hands down, is, well, a couple things. Systems are hard to fix, right? Like
mm,
it takes thought, it takes work, it takes a team. But we are dealing with systematic issues that need to be fixed. And then the other challenge is, whenever you start something new, gosh golly, it's really hard. so 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 some days are easier than others, but I'm just so passionate about this, and so excited to see that we've gotten so broken. I feel like there's no, we have to fix it.
yeah.
Everyone knows how broken we are. Everyone knows how burnt out we are. Everybody knows how many emails we're getting, and how many meetings we're sitting in, and how many new types of technology we're trying to figure out.
Right.
And we know we have to fix it.
Yeah.
Leadership is fun. Managing people should be fun.
Yep.
It's really just a gift to get to help people grow and grow an organization, and I want people to get back to that.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Yeah. People, if they haven't ever tried to start something new, or get an idea that was just in your journal, and then
Yeah.
I think the average person has no clue what's stacked against you from, getting it moving and getting it to a place where, it's actually alive and supporting and, doing those kind of things.
It's really hard.
Yeah, it is. You just said something so powerful about, fun and leadership. You managed, you led a big team,
Yeah.
big company. What were some of the fun moments or fun habits or ways that you try to bring some of that, brevity and lightness to your team in the midst of, like you talked about earlier, businesses make money and there's a pressure to it and a stress and
Yeah.
those kind of things.
I found very early in my career, if you let a team run themselves while knowing what's going on behind the scenes, they're going to do a better job than you could ever do.
Wow.
But that really takes knowing your people, right? Being
Mm.
invested in them, being invested in those one-on-ones, being invested in really being crystal clear about this is our mission, these are our goals, these are the projects that we're working on, and really letting people shine in their moment and giving them the opportunity to excel where they can excel. Everybody excels in something different. Everybody brings something different to the table. And as a leader, really being able to know what it is that lets somebody shine and letting them have that platform to shine was always my favorite thing to do. And and that's what I think I love most about leadership, letting the team really run themselves and knowing that as their leader, I was there to support them. I
Yeah.
was there to help them navigate the personality challenge, the budget challenges, going to the big guys and
Yep.
duking it out, kind of shielding them from that. But letting the team run themselves and really helping them shine, I think that was just really fun. And then they chose the fun. We had bake offs and always cooking chili and cakes, and birthdays turned into a big thing, and things that would have never been my choice, letting them decide in their little, again, microcosm of what culture we had at the time was really the best thing to do.
Wow. That's powerful. I talk to C-suite executives all the time who have kind of a common, middle manager headache or middle manager opportunity. You
Yeah.
promote somebody to the middle manager role, maybe because they were winning, in their position, and now all of a sudden they have to do exactly what you just talked about, which you said it so brilliantly. Like most middle managers just get to that place, but they struggle with letting go and letting their teams lead. What advice would you give leaders who are kind of struggling with those middle managers who are they're just they're trying to get to that phase where they can let go and let the people below
Yeah.
them lead.
I think a lot of it is having clarity and confidence in your own goals.
Mm.
Um, as a leader, your goals should be different, right? Your goals should usually be about revenue or product and if you're clear and confident about what your goals are, and you have clarity and confidence about what your manager's goals are,
Oh
they should be different. And that is, I think, a huge problem, right? We lack that clarity. We don't always stop to think.
yeah.
We lack that clarity on what our goal is versus what our management goals are or what our manager's goals are. And if you know what their goals are, and you're then let them do their job. If you're not there to compete with them, you're there to help them shine.
Wow.
And if they're shining, you're shining.
Yep.
um, and I think that again, that's the fun of leadership, right? Is helping your whole team shine, and helping your team find their place and their footing, so you can only be the best department. My goal was always to be the best department in the whole company. And it really came down to, are my people happy? Are they walking in every day saying, I'm really glad I'm here? Are they walking in every day saying, I know what's expected of me today? I know what my boss expects of me today, and I'm going to do it. And I think
Yep.
those expectations and that clarity are really some of the things that are lacking if we're really struggling with how to manage our own leaders.
Wow. Maybe walk us through, is there a simple practice or two listeners can employ even tomorrow at work, to bring more presence in their leadership or to take one of these, micro reset kind of
Yeah,
moments?
so I'll walk you through the micro moment reset. It's
Perfect.
like I say, it's nothing new. It's all common sense. But let's say you walk into a meeting and your boss calls you out right on the spot. I would turn bright red. That's just my thing. The interesting thing remember or think about is nobody cares if you take a step. Nobody cares if you pause for 2 or 3 seconds. We're all in
Mm,
such a rush to answer, 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 and be like, I got it. It's really great practice to teach yourself, again, to stop and pause and not be worried that your boss is going to be like, why did they stop for 2 seconds? They're not even noticing that. Trust me, I've been doing this for a couple of years. I would do this in the middle of board meetings, and nobody in the board meeting had any idea I was stopping, pausing, gathering myself, acknowledging the moment. So my method is called ABC 1, 2, 3. A is acknowledge the moment. You stop and you acknowledge the moment. You just acknowledge however you feel. I feel very stressed that I am being called out in this meeting. Acknowledge it.
yep.
Breathe in and out. Just ground yourself. It gives you 2 beats to say, I got this. I got this. I can deal with this. And you choose how you move forward. You choose not to be defensive. You choose to say, you know what? I might need a moment. I'll get back to you on this one.
Yep.
Instead of giving off some answer that's going to get you in trouble, or that's not the right answer, or that's going to be a reaction versus a professional response. And that's it.
Wow. I love that. Boy, it's so good. So good. You have kind of walked us through so many practical bits of leadership that we can immediately employ. Let me ask you this as we kind of wrap the conversation. As you look forward, the next 10 years in the workplace, what kind of leadership do you believe our workplaces will need most?
Yeah, I really do think it's going to be back to the basics. It's going to be back to people are tired. They're tired of bad behavior in business. I talked about that earlier. They're tired of trying to figure out what's actually being said to me. It's going to be back to the basics. Let's bring back the humanity. I think these new generations are going to demand a more human work environment. Work is 24/7 these days, and that's okay, but let's make sure that we are able to set boundaries in front of that. I think the communication is going to be critical. You're going to be looking for leaders that know how to communicate, that know how to pull teams together. Um, and the technology is not going anywhere, right? We're going to have to stay on top of all of this AI and everything. So you're really going to be looking for leaders who understand technology and understand how that's really impacting them. But I really think that humanity comes back into play. I like to say in my keynotes is that really the old leadership playbook is gone,
Mm,
and we're rewriting the playbook because it's so different. And quite frankly, the playbook in 10 years is probably going to be very, very different. But at the core of who we always are going to be is going to be that human side of leadership. It's got to play in because we're going to be expected to do so much and grow so much, and you want people to have buy-in and excitement when they show up at work, and that means feeling like they're a part of something.
yeah. Wow. This has been phenomenal. Thank you so much for being so generous and
Yeah,
pouring out your
thanks for your
wisdom.
great
And
questions.
yeah, this
I
is,
feel very
thank you.
reflective.
Well, thank you. Well, before I do let you hang up, let me ask you a couple of rapid fire questions. Just
Sure.
always trying to give our listeners new ideas, new resources. Is there a speaker that every time you hear them, you just you walk away so filled up? You highly recommend our listeners go and find them on YouTube and listen to their talks.
Yeah. Oh, there's a speaker. I think she's Canadian. Her name's Sarah McVannell, and
Mm,
she's really all about recognition and authentic leadership. And she just brings this great energy to the room. And yeah, like I say, it's really that authenticity that she's really talking about, and that recognition, that humanity. I think she's great.
I love it. If you're a podcast listener, not everyone is, but is there a podcast that you just keep going back to and you highly recommend?
Oh gosh. I'm such a fan of Amy Poehler's new podcast.
Mm,
I just I good hang. I love it. You probably had 80 people recommend it, but I can't recommend it enough. She's great. Feel good. She's a great listener. Love her.
it's so much fun. And then
Yeah.
is there a book that you just say, hey, every leader, if you don't read any other book, you've got to read this book?
Oh, yeah. So there's a book, it's called Stolen Focus.
Hmm.
It's by, I'll probably butcher the name, Johan Hari. And it's really, my book is just a little handbook on how to survive life. This really talks about the noise of the world, and it really hits to the core of why we are just so overextended.
Mm.
I think it's a great book.
Wow. I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
Okay. So where can our listeners find you? Where's the best place? We'll link all of this in
Yeah,
the show
I'm
notes
on
and email.
LinkedIn. That's probably the best place to find me. LinkedIn on Shannon Seastead. I have my website, shannonseastead.com. Would love to hear from you. Anybody read my book, please let me know.
Oh,
Yeah.
I love it. Thank you so much. We'll make sure we post that in our show notes and an email and all those kind of things. Shannon, again, seriously, thank you for taking the time to bring us so much wisdom. And I know that these kind of micro moment resets are just going to be powerful for our leadership. So thank you again.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I really, really appreciate it. It was a great conversation.
Thanks for tuning in to today's episode of the Speak with People podcast. It means the world to us when you share this episode. Thanks for liking, subscribing, or following the podcast. That really does help the podcast get into more ears and into more leaders listening. Also, don't forget, we have 2 exciting resources for you. The first is go to Facebook and join the speakers group. This is a community designed for leaders who want to grow their communication skills. Also, go to speakwithpeople.com/skills library to access the Communication Skills Library. It is an online resource chock filled with resources that will inspire you and transform you and grow your communication skills. Thanks again for being a part of the listening community. We cannot wait for the next episode.